Well, Israel says it has killed one of the Hamas commanders that it targeted in an attack on a humanitarian zone in Gaza on Saturday. He was Rafa Salama, commander of the Khan Younis brigade of the militant group Hamas, which carried out the October 7th terror attacks. The Hamas-run Gaza Health Authority says at least 90 Palestinians were also killed and hundreds more injured in the Israeli airstrikes. Many of the casualties were sheltering in a designated safe zone near Khan Younis. Scott Anderson from the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees in Gaza, UNRWA, was at Nasser Hospital where casualties were taken.
I mean, very simply, it was a scene of chaos, a scene of despair, and a scene of not having enough aid for everyone that needs it. Nasser Hospital was just reconstituted not long ago after an operation in Khan Younis. The hospital has 38 emergency beds, and they already had 40 patients before the incident happened, so they were very quickly overwhelmed. Almost another 150 patients showed up at the hospital, and as I said, it was just very chaotic. Saw parents trying to find children, children who didn't have parents, and it was very moving, but not necessarily in a good way, what we saw at the hospital yesterday. They were trying to clean up blood, water, because they didn't have disinfectant. So it's just a very difficult time for everyone.
And describe to us who these patients were who were being brought in.
The patients that I saw were very much what looked like innocent civilians. There were a lot of children. I saw children as young as 2 years old and really up to 17, 18 years old. I saw children that were double amputees. I saw the 2-year-old child they didn't know where her parents were. Her grandmother had found her. 2 girls I met were paralyzed. I met one family and talked to the mother. 3 of her children were impacted by what had happened. One was paralyzed, one was killed, and one had no injuries at all. But everybody had very much the same thing to say. They went somewhere they thought they would be safe, and unfortunately for them, they were not.
And they were taken somewhere where it sounds like they can't be given proper treatment.
Yeah, that's correct. I mean, I think that what they're basically doing is basic wound management and basic pain management. Their doctors there have the technical capacity to do more, including things like spinal fusion and other things to try to mitigate the effects of back injuries. But what they don't have is the equipment, they don't have the prosthetics, and they don't have enough really of everything. As I said, they're missing disinfectant. Fuel shortages have been prevalent across Gaza. And even though we prioritized hospitals, unfortunately, there's not always enough fuel to go around. So it was also very warm. As I said, the whole thing was very difficult. And talking to the doctors, they find it very frustrating because they've trained to be able to provide care for people like this when these sort of incidents happen. And it's their people. In many cases, it's their families or their extended families, but because of the circumstances that they find themselves in, they're unable to provide the care that we would expect.
And we're talking about a dire situation here at these hospitals. How long can this one keep operating in the very basic situation that it's operating under?
I mean, I think it'll keep working as long as they can, as long as they have any supplies to try to treat people. They were trying to expand the bed capacity last night by setting tents up outside the parking lot, just so everybody could have a bed. I mentioned the limited capacity in the emergency room, and you saw people or patients really anywhere and everywhere, on benches, on anything that they could be laid on, some on the floor. So the doctors are doing their very best to try to make it work. They were close to being overwhelmed. But they will continue to do everything they can to provide care for the people that come there, as well as the other hospitals that are operating in Gaza.
The other thing I wanted to ask you was the tally at the moment. Health officials in Gaza say over 38,500 people have died in this war. How are they actually managing to put a number on that?
I mean, I think it's not particularly scientific. At a macro level, I think they do know everybody that has lost their lives. The details of are they women, are they children, men, ages is much harder to gather. And in many cases, an apartment building could have suffered from an attack or been bombed or collateral damage, and there's people still trapped inside. So they go based on who they think is inside, and they do try to verify as we move forward. But I think at the macro level, the numbers are close. But at the micro level, at the granular level, trying to figure it out, you're not sure. The one thing I would say that is needed desperately in Gaza is a ceasefire that results in the return of the hostages, respite for people in Gaza, and a chance for them to begin rebuilding their lives.
Thank you very much for the insights. UNRWA's Scott Anderson there. Good to have you on the show again.
Thank you.